So hello everyone. So basically this is a video on the review of AWS certified AI prediction exam which I passed yesterday. So I have decided to make this video because there is a bit of discrepancy here in the exam, because the actual content that is available on the Udemy course or the official AWS skill builder website actually does not give you the exact idea on how the exam is framed. The concepts are the same but the depth is different. So the two sources from where I studied were basically the Udemy course by Stephen Marek. You would have heard about Stephen Marek. So he builds excellent courses on AWS. But since it was a new course, so like a new exam, so maybe there is not much visibility on what to expect. So I studied from this course, and second source was the AWS skill builder website, basically where Amazon officially put some content that you can view for the preparation. So to begin with, I will tell you three things on this video: the basic overview on what to expect in the exam, some sample questions that I remember, and some topics that were not covered in the course and in the skill builder that I saw in the exam. So yeah, to give you some credibility, I will show you the certificate. So the thing is, when you submit your exam, in just 1 to 2 hours you get an email that about your results, whether you have passed or failed. So it's a very quick process. So if you see this, the AWS certified practitioner exam beta, and exam date is yesterday, and the the status is pass. These are other two exams that I gave previously, so you can ignore them. Now coming back to the our main discussion. So like everyone who is going to give this exam must go through this exam guide which tells us what to expect. I'm skipping this part, you can just refer it later on, I will add it in the description. So basically these are types of question, we will skip this. I will just directly move to the topics. So basically these are 5 domains: fundamentals of AI, Gen AI applications, and these are the objectives. Now what the problem is, like the course, like if I give an example, like there is a term called bias. So the course will tell you like what bias is. Basically if someone is preparing for the exam, so he might be aware of it. So basically bias is something when your model is not trained properly on the training data, so it generally lies under underfitting section. So now the problem is the course will tell you what bias is, but in the exam what I saw was like a question was framed on the different types of biases available, so I was not aware of that. So I will give you an example. So basically I encountered a question that it was something like there is a ML model which is using image recognition, basically image recognition for identifying a group of people which the model believes to be like not good people, maybe robbers or something. There was a term given. So basically the issue with the model was it is and the thing was that the model has to trigger alarm based on it. Let's say if it identifies any suspicious person, so it will trigger alarm. So the thing was identification. So the thing was the model was giving wrong results because it was always triggering alarms for a certain set of people based on their looks. The model was basically triggering alarms for a certain set of people based on their look, let's say. So now the options the question was like what type of bias does it represent. So options were like observer bias, one was observer bias, one was sampling bias, and recency bias. So these were the kind of options. So the problem here is if you are not aware of these terms, you might not be able to answer this question. And the course, like the sources from where I read this, they do not cover this. So I gave the answer logically thinking that so observer bias is something, let's say if someone is if I Google it out, let's say observer bias is basically the tendency of observers to not see what is there. Okay, so this is a kind of training problem, I guess. But if we, so I'm just giving an idea of what to expect. Sampling bias is something, let's say the model is making predictions on the sample data. So sample data could be wrong. Let's say I am preparing some research on 100 students, and out of the 100 students I only select 10 students, and let's say the 10 students I selected, they were all of a same gender or same religion or same like ethnic so now the problem with that is my model will make decision based on that sample data. So based on that sample data of 10 people, it will start making predictions for all the 90. So that is an issue here, and recency bias is something which we have seen recently, so you make decision based on that. So like I'm not sure what the answer for this question would be, because they don't tell you the answers, they just tell you in which domain how much you scored. So this was one question that I remember. And next if we move to this thing, so I think the exam was more focused on fundamentals of AI and ML. Apart from covering the AWS services, the more focus was on ML models, AI, because there are many models like which are not there in the course, but you would see in the exam, like there were questions on SVM, that is support vector machine. There were questions on decision trees. So these are some models that, and there was questions on residual neural networks. So these are not something that is covered, so you might get a bit of difference there. One question I remember from here is like so there was a question like this, that basically there was something like there's a system and it has to classify human genes. Basically a system has to classify human genes into 20 different categories, into 20 categories. So which model, like, and there was also condition given that each, basically human genes, they're interconnected to each other. So there was a condition given that each category would be interlinked to the previous category in some way. So there would be some connection between the genes. So some connection. So you understand, right? I don't remember the wording and all, but I'm just giving you an idea. So some connection between the basically genes. So the options were like one was supervised learning, not exactly supervised learning, it was logistic regression, linear regression type of supervised learning models. So linear regression, one was neural networks, and one option was decision trees. So one was neural networks, one was decision trees. So now here, like, you can easily eliminate these two, because these are a type of regression models that predict a normal value, like a range of numeric values, but here it's categories, so you can remove this. So you're left with two options. Now this, I felt this is a bit of confusion, because decision trees are also, if you have seen the graph of decision trees, it is also interconnected to each other, and neural networks is also interconnected to each other. So it's important to know the difference between these two to answer this question. Yeah. So moving ahead, like if we go similarities, this is supervised learning. You can expect a lot of questions on this part, that is bias, fairness, algorithms. Yeah, and there was looking at reinforcement learning, there was a question like basically you had to tell, it was written that a model is self-learning. Basically the keyword was self-learning. The model is self-learning, and I don't remember, it was a huge question, but the keyword was self-learning. So self-learning basically signifies reinforcement learning. If you know about ML, so there are three types of models: supervised, which is training is done on labeled dataset; unsupervised, done on unlabeled dataset; and reinforcement is something where the model uses self-learning mechanism to improve. Like it makes a decision, and based on decision there is a feedback for that, and based on feedback it self improves. So there was this was a simpler question. So reinforcement learning, and going ahead, yeah, you can expect a bit of use cases questions from here, that they will give you certain scenarios and you have to tell which model would be appropriate. Specific use cases, it's good to know. I did not see any question from here, but yeah, and the surprising part was that there were not much questions from this AWS services, although there's a lot of focus on here, but I hardly could see 2-3 questions on these services. It's better to know the difference between each one of them, but yeah. ML pipeline, yeah, this is an important topic. There were certain questions of hyperparameter tuning, like basically when we do like fine tuning a model, so we change the weights of the base model. So basically hyperparameters, so there are two ways in which we change the base. One is fine tuning and one is continued pre-training. So some question was based on this, that so if you are aware that basically the fine tuning is based on labeled dataset, like it uses labeled data, and this one uses unlabeled data. Sorry. So yeah, so and hyperparameter is something that I used to change the parameters of the model to make the algorithm better, make the model better. So question would be like, which of these two, fine tuning or content, which of these two would be used to improve the accuracy of a model? And in the question they will mention that whether you have labeled data or unlabeled data. Out of 4 options, 2 of them would be like you can eliminate them, 2 would be left, and depending upon whether it's labeled or unlabeled, you have to choose, like you will whether use fine tuning or control. So the other name of this is domain adaptation. So sometimes this is also mentioned in the question, domain adaptation tuning. Basically this is done on a specific type of domain. And continued pre-training is like you train the model again and again till it reaches a certain threshold. Fine tuning is you just train a model once. And use sources of, okay, from okay, this is okay, yeah, SageMaker. You can expect a lot of questions here. So basically you need to understand the difference between SageMaker and Bedrock. So it's very important because how questions are framed is basically they will give you scenarios and you have to choose like whether you would use SageMaker in that case or whether you would choose Bedrock. So you need to know the difference. So basically Bedrock is a basically simpler version which helps you to create generative AI applications, and you do not need to do anything. You can just select the model, and then you can use the API to call the model and do your functionality, whatever you want to do. In SageMaker is basically ML machine learning service. Basically, to develop a ML model, there are certain stages involved. So now from Bedrock, what I remember was, so basically in Bedrock there are 2 types of like let's say I am using Bedrock and I have selected a foundational model from Bedrock. Now I can customize that model, right, based on my data. Like I want that model should be fine-tuned on my data so that it makes better decisions. Now the question was that in this case, like it's a let's say a customer has selected selected a foundational model from Bedrock. Now he wants to fine-tune the model based on his data. Fine-tune the model based on, fine-tune is also called customization. So he want to fine-tune the model based on his own data. Now like the question was, what will you do here? So like where would you put that data in? So there are options like you will put that data in S3, you will use data wrangler, like so basically data wrangler is if you have read about it, it's basically data transformation service, and it was DynamoDB. Something options were there, DynamoDB, yeah, something like these options were given. So the basic idea behind this is like when you're using Bedrock and you want to fine tune a model, so you have to remember that you have to keep that data in S3 to fine tune the model. So it was based on that. And secondly, one more question from this part was that let's say you are choosing your own custom model. You are not choosing the like basically the Bedrock model. You want to customize it. So so actually there is a bit of confusion here. Actually there were three questions from this part. I will come to this question later on. So one question was that like when you want to fine tune a model, so there is a concept of provision throughput in Bedrock. So basically when you fine tune a model, you have to use provision throughput to fine tune a model. So the option was like this. Basically like a use case was given. The customer was fine tuning a model. So some options were there, like whether you need to use provision throughput or not to fine tune a model, yes or no, something like this. So the answer is yes, you need to have provision throughput to choose the fine tune model. Now the question, so just read about this part, provision throughput. I guess there were 2-3 questions on this. I remember one more now, I will tell you. So just read about this in Bedrock when fine tuning a model. And yeah, so one more question which I was telling before was, so in SageMaker, when you customize a model, just give me a second. Yep. So I do not remember the question exactly. Okay, okay. What? Let's leave it. I will tell you later on when I remember it. So, yeah, we will come back to it later. I don't remember it now. So, yep. So one question which I remembered was based on pricing of Bedrock. It was that the customer needs to select the lowest Bedrock pricing model, and the condition was that he does not need long-term commitment. And needs flexibility as well. So one of the options was provision throughput, one was on demand, one was spot, one was batch. So actually you need to be aware of the pricing models of the Bedrock. So provision throughput is something when we have a long-term commitment, like I want to commit for 1 month, 6 months. So, and on demand, as name suggests, you pay only for the things that you use. Spot, I don't think there is a kind of thing such as spot in pricing model, but you can check it, because I am not sure about the answers here. But yeah, so this was the question, and ideally on demand should be the answer, but you can still refer it. And moving next, what else was there? Okay, yeah, a lot of questions were there on this part: embeddings, vector, prompt engineering, a lot of questions, tokens. So one simple question was, what is a token? Basically the difference Basically, two options were easy to eliminate. One was like it's a basic unit used by machine learning models, and second one, it's a numerical representation of words. So the numerical representation is basically called as vector. So you just need to remember this. Although I expect that people would know this, so it's a easier question. Like what is a token and what is a vector? So you need to know the difference between these two. Yeah. Coming back to this part. Yeah, a lot of questions were there on chatbot as well, Q developer, Q business, and basically a lot of things, technical terms was there on machine learning models. So I will tell you like one example. Like there is a term called epoch. Basically, it means the number of iterations you run when you train a model. So this term I was not, to be honest, aware of. So there were two questions based on this. One, I would tell you that a model was not giving basically good results. So how can you increase the accuracy of the model? How can you increase the accuracy? If you feel I'm slow because I have not prepared anything, you can like see the video in 2x or 1.5x. So basically the options were that increase the temperature, increase the k value, top k value, and two options were that increase the epoch and decrease the epoch. So now I was not aware of these two terms, but if you look at a temperature is basically used for enhancing the creativity of the model. So if creativity is enhanced, it will ideally give that outputs that the user does not expect. It will give you creative outputs. Similarly for top k is basically the k, like if I specify k as 100, so it will model will look for 100 probable words to make a decision. So these will will not increase the accuracy, but it can decrease the accuracy. So out of these two, epoch is based on number of iterations. So it's obvious that if I increase the iterations of a ML model, it will improve. But I was not aware of this term, so yeah, I read it later on. So these are kind of things that are not covered, that will lead to you losing some marks, because there were two questions on epoch. Second, I don't remember, but I remember seeing there was this option in some question. And what else? If I go to here, yeah, hallucination. So it was a direct question on hallucination. Basically, when the model gives incorrect output, it was a simpler question. Interpretability, explainability, you can expect some questions. Yeah, this was also there. Compliance, guardrails. So from here, like what I remember is you would have heard of Amazon Bedrock guardrails. So guardrails are something that you use to basically restrict the ML model. Let's say if I don't want the ML model should give answer related to food, so I will add a guardrail in my model telling him that if someone asks you about food, just say that we don't, you're not authorized. So basically guardrails are something you can use to restrict sensitive topics. So there was one question on this part also. Although it was not direct, but if you know the concept, you can easily like tell it that it is a guardrail question. And one thing I remember, like yeah, so AWS Titan, there was some questions on AWS Titan as well. This is also not very well covered in the course. And SVM, XGBoost, although I am not aware of these terminologies, but this was there in the exam. Yep, one question I remember is like it was like which is the most environment friendly EC2 type. So this was out of scope according to me, like of asking this kind of question, what is the most environment friendly EC2 type. and the options were G class and P class, C class. Basically these are type of EC2. Although if we search it, I think it's G class, most environment friendly EC2 type. You can look for it. Like I was trying to find it. I think it's G, but you can search for it. So these are kind of questions that you do not expect in the AI type of exams, but yeah, this was there. And what else was there? Yep, so there were many questions on that SageMaker part, basically SageMaker deployment models. You have if you are preparing, you would have heard real time, there's serverless, async, so batch. So actually there were two questions from here. Real time is basically if you need to make a decision in low latency and only one decision at a time. Serverless, asynchronous are kind of, basically it has a lower, like higher latency than real time, basically around 60 seconds latency. This one has 60 minutes, and this is a very high latency. You'd use batch when you don't expect the output very quickly, and the benefit of batch is like you can take many inputs together to make a decision. So you just read about it. There were two questions from here, so it's an important topic. Basically they will give you a scenario, like the question was that you have a certain payload of data and latency is not a concern for you. You have a higher GB of data, latency is no concern. So which deployment model you choose? So obviously we'll choose batch because latency is not an issue, data size is large. So yeah. And you should also read SageMaker clarify. So I remember some questions from this part as well. SageMaker clarify, basically used for detecting bias and all. Yep. And also remember something on logs for Bedrock. I read about this, not sure about the question, but something related to logs, invocation logging and all. And Q developer, there were a lot of questions. Q developer, Q business. Remember the difference. Business is for your enterprise data. Developer is related to your AWS account. Okay, yeah, this is also important. Temperature, top K, top P. Some questions from here. And prompt engineering, yeah, so prompt engineering is a very important topic. You can expect a lot of questions from here. You should understand the difference between each of this. The only issue is like you would be given examples and you have to figure out not this is an easy one. Like in prompt templates or prompt engineering, there are certain types of prompt attacks like poisoning, hijacking, jailbreaking. So that is the difficult part. You would be given certain prompts, you would have to identify which kind of prompt attack is that. This is easy. Zero shot is you don't provide anything. Single shot is you provide one example to the model. Few shot is you provide some examples. Similarly there is chain of thought as well. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. Yeah, just focus on this part. This we have discussed. Fine tuning, these are all important. And responsible AI is, it was not of a tough part. Yeah, this is something which is important because this is something which I was not aware of. Like these are certain things like you would have heard of it, but in exam actually I saw a lot of evaluation models which I have never heard of. Evaluation models, so I was aware of like there is F1 accuracy basically for binary classification. These are models are there. The problem is like also there is rogue model for text summarization and all. So The problem is in exam this was given, so I was not aware of this model. What does it do? So actually it's a bilingual model, like it's when we are translating from one language to another, many languages. So this model can be used for checking the accuracy, how well our model is translating. So basically the question was this only: we have a model and the use case is to translate from one language to 100 languages. How will you evaluate? So options was this model, Rogue, and there are also some regression models, if you remember, mean square something. So these are for regression. Just take a look at that as well. And there are others as well. I don't remember the name, but there are many other models uh, for text summarization. That is what will confuse you if you're not aware about each one of them. I don't remember it now, but yeah, basically just read about all the evaluation models, and I will suggest you like read from the documentation, not from any course, because AWS documentation will cover all these. What happened to this, bro? Evaluation. Yep. So just read this part, like all these parts. What else? Yeah, guardrails, Bedrock, legal risk. This is fine. And what else? Any other question I'm thinking of? One was like one from question I remember Q developer was that a solution architect wants to make the work of his developer easy. So why he will use Q developer? Basically, Q developer will suggest him code suggestions how he can write and all. And these are kind of network models that you can. I think for now I remember these only. If I yeah, one question I got it. Yep. It was like there's a chatbot application which is predicting the intent of a user, and it is not giving good results. So you want to improve the accuracy of the model. So how will you do it? Like what data would you use? So options were like this. What basically to fine tune, like to improve accuracy, you fine tune the model, and to fine tune the model you need data in a certain format. So the options were like this: user data, user message, like what user will say, and user intent. Similarly, user message and chatbot. It was a chatbot response, and user intent and chatbot response. And last one was user what is the last one? Basically all four iterations of this possible: message intent, message chatbot, intent chatbot. Yeah, user message, user intent, message response, and intent. Yep. So now the thing is, if you want to improve the accuracy of a model, so you need to focus on this: basically what user is saying and what is the intent. So basically it be a kind of label data to given to the model. If we choose this is of no use to us. Basically it's telling that user was speaking a certain language and chatbot replied. So we don't know if the chatbot gave a like identified accurately or not, because in the question it's already mentioned that it's giving incorrect results. Similarly for this part, So I guess this should be the best option, but still, but yes, I am not aware of the answers, so you can think of it. Yep. What else? Prompting, yeah. Yeah, there is also a question like how is basically cost impacted in the foundational model, on which parameter? So basically input tokens, output tokens, these are the parameters that affect the cost of a model. And there were also certain questions around medical, like their services transcribe, comprehend medical. So read about this. Data Wrangler, SageMaker, SageMaker registry. There were some questions, and SageMaker Canvas. There were some questions. So read about SageMaker services. Like every service of SageMaker is, I think, important. Starting from dashboard, monitor, cards, jumpstart, and studio. Just so yep. So this is all I remember, certainly, because there were a lot. There were 85 questions, and it's difficult to remember each one of them. And you get 2 hours of time. It's a beta exam, so in the official exam you will get 65 questions. So yes, if anyone has any concerns or wants to know more, you can put a comment on it. I will see if I can add something more, or add maybe a new video something, and maybe prepare something and come, because this was a raw video. So yeah, not sure. Okay, yeah, thanks, cheers.